I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, February the 10th, brought to you in part by the new Nasalgen, Bovolus Nasalgen 3 PMH, a one-of-a-kind respiratory vaccine that is safe to use in young calves for a strong, healthy foundation. Go to unmatchedprotection.com for more information. Ag commodities sharply higher, and I tell you what, these investors have really jumped into these ag commodities as they've fallen out of love of your stocks with the shaky economy and inflation doomed to start rising here. And they're looking at the drought conditions in the plains from the top to the bottom. I mean, it is dry all throughout that area. You can't find anybody in the plains region that is really happy with their moisture situation and on your crops, and then also the tight supplies of market-ready cattle that's going to go well into the spring, guys. They're already tipping their hand, these packers are, that they're short of cattle. They're looking for more cattle, and we've got dwindling supplies of market-ready cattle for them to purchase from now through at least May, and maybe even further out than that. But we are getting ready for some really impressive cattle markets coming our way, and you guys need to pay attention while this thing is going, and while these investors are jumping into these out front futures markets. I know you never want to sell a new high or anything like that, but you got to pay attention there. You guys can go out and latch on to some of these late summer and fall yearlings, and you can lock them in the high 80s right now, guys. And if they won't make good money at that, you're giving way too much for these calves, or you're expecting them to be worth more than what they are. But you can go out there and get you an LRP, livestock risk protection insurance policy there for $5 or $6 a hundred, and rest all winter and all spring long into the summer, and know that you're going to make good money on those cattle. So keep an eye out for those opportunities as this thing is really booming, because you know how quick it can turn around on us. But we talked so much in recent visits about your National Corporate Beef Association's decision to pretty much skip over the biggest cattle legislation that we've seen in a century, and just kind of talk about these directives that they presented at Houston last week at their convention. And then they just kind of tiptoed around things, and in one directive or another they touched the things, pretty much trying to take all the teeth out of the compromise bill that Deb Fisher and Chuck Grassley have put together. But I haven't talked about one of the things that they accepted in one of the directives there, which is the gerrymandering of the 5-area feeding region. And you guys know what gerrymandering is. It's what they do to the congressional districts, and they redraw them, and they're doing that right now as to try to encompass areas of different political favor, and it's all for political regions, and then they just draw them around, and they look like a salamander. And if you look into how that name came about, it has to do with that. But they are looking to redraw the 5-area feeding region. Now, this was proposed by USDA to try to fool us into thinking that there's more negotiated trade out there than there is. It kind of reminds me of the way that your fake meat eaters try to fool themselves into thinking they're eating real meat. But anyway, they're redrawing or proposing to redraw your 5-area feeding region to encompass areas of South Dakota, Wyoming, and Illinois where there is significant negotiated trade, and they can get through some of the confidentiality filters. If they do that, it can make the 5-area feeding region negotiated trade look bigger if they do that. And why do you think there's more negotiated trade happening just outside of your 5-area feeding region, which you guys know is Texas? One of them is Texas, western Oklahoma, and eastern New Mexico. Kansas is another one. Iowa, Nebraska, and then Colorado, which rarely ever prints because they don't have enough trade there and don't have enough participants in there to get through those confidentiality filters there. But why do you think there's trade happening out there? Because your packers are going outside that region and buying cattle, and a lot of times giving premiums for those cattle, the better quality cattle, to get those cattle to fill their needs. So they're wanting to go out there and encompass those cattle to make the 5-area feeding region look like it has robust trade. Now, if you are guys sitting in those areas of South Dakota, Wyoming, and Illinois, where they do have commercial feedlots and they are selling significant numbers of negotiated cash, what does this mean to you? Does it mean that, oh my gosh, now they're going to recognize that we're trading out here and where our numbers are going to start counting? No, guys, you better watch out for the rump end of your wranglers, because you are about to get it if this happens. And it won't have to, it's not nothing that's has to be passed by a law or anything like that. It can just be a decision that USDA makes in their mandatory price reporting to go out and include those areas. The packers, once those areas are included, the packers will no longer come out there and want to negotiate for your cattle, and sure not for market or higher prices to fill their needs. Because why? Because it's going to go into your 5-area weighted average, which settles a lot of your AMAs and your formula trades there. And so you guys are going to end up getting screwed out of your good negotiated trade that you have in those areas that are just outlying from your 5-area feeding region. So you guys need to get on top of that and push against that and hope that they don't get that done. And because you know what's going to happen, because you're going to lose your advantage on selling cattle because you're sitting outside of your 5-area feeding region. Your packers will at that point go further outside the region looking for market-ready slaughter cattle, and they'll buy those cattle at negotiated prices and premiums if they need cattle, because it won't affect the weighted average. But that is not a good deal for you guys in those outlying areas, and I just want you guys to be aware that National Corporate Beef Association has decided that that is something that they want. So those guys are not representing you in a positive way when it talks about gerrymandering your 5-area feeding region, and you need to resist that as much as you can. Let's talk about your board on Wednesday. February live cattle futures, everything was up. February was up 92 cents at 142.90. That's our spot this month. Live cattle futures market at 142.90. They're still wanting to buy those cattle under 140 in the places and they can get it done. April live cattle futures up $1.65 at 147.82. That sounds pretty good. Look at the back months of your live cattle futures, up 30 cents to up $1.22. March feeder cattle up $1.40, and your grains were way higher too, so they did it right in the face of that. But up $1.40 on March at 168.27. You cannot get that for the best load of 800-pound feeder steers you find anywhere. Perfect weight, perfect condition, perfect everything with a bow tied around them. You can't get that, and that's talking March, which is not that far away, guys. April feeder cattle up 80 cents at 172.57. Your back months, your feeder cattle up 75 cents to up $1.27. And I told you that the grains were higher. Check these quotes out. Your March corn up 14.5 cents a bushel at 6.46 3/4 cents. Wow. Beans up 25 3/4 on Wednesday at 15.94 3/4 cents a bushel. And Kansas City hard red winter wheat up 13 3/4 cents at 8.15 a bushel. My gosh, these things are getting high. How about fat cattle trade? We had a little more trickle in there, but we did establish trade in the Southern Plains, and it's $1.40, which is a strong steady with last week. Northern Plains is going to be a bit better than what they were last week, so our market's going to be steady to strong. We sure thought we'd get a buck or two more, but we're just not going to be able to get it, doesn't look like. How about Iowa? Had confirmed sales of 1,600 head, live sales from 139 to 141. Dress sales, one deal at 225. We haven't seen that dressed for a long time, but 225 dressed in the meat there in Iowa. How about Nebraska? 1,400 head confirmed, live sales from 141 to 142. That's a bit better. And dress sales from 222 to 224. And that's really on the high side of last week's trend there. Kansas had 7,900. That'll be the biggest day they'll have this week. Confirmed sales and live sales from 138 to largely and almost entirely 140. And Texas 2,300 head from 138 to almost all 140. So that's not a terrible market, but we got to get it in hunks whenever we got an opportunity to do it. Box beef cutout values were lower again, and they keep diving here. Choice cuts 275.79 down $1.67. Select down $1.79 at 272.05. Still a real thin spread between your choice select spreads on your cutouts. Slaughter was ambitious again on Wednesday. Another 122,000 head harvest day on Wednesday. For the week, 365,000. That's 3,000 more than last week. 20,000 more than the same week a year ago. Got to brag on DV Auction a little bit. You know we're heavy on our production sale broadcast, but this week at Raven Angus up in Cologne, South Dakota, we had a really good day there broadcasting and taking bids for Raven Angus production sale there on DV Auction. Just on the DV Auction console, we sold 63 head there, over $500,000, including lot number 2, which was 62,500 head, or $500 for that one lot there, and that was a really stick out deal there. And if you guys have a production sale coming up this spring and you're not broadcasting your sale through DV Auction, you're missing out on a big pool of buyers that you normally wouldn't be able to tap into. We've been doing it the longest. We've got the biggest pool of buyers, and we're by far the best production sale broadcasters and bid takers that there is in the business. Talk about your feeder cattle market. How about your real-time index, brought to you by Margin Tracks by Midcon. Real-time index late in the day on Wednesday, sitting at 162.58. That was down $1.34 because we had a lot more of those Southern Plains type sales with some significant receipts there that pulled it down a little bit from Monday and Tuesday, which those Southern Plains sales weren't up to speed yet, still recovering from last week's storm. But your big sales on Wednesday, OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, 6,000 head, which sounds significant, but last week they didn't have very many because they sold them all on Tuesday because of the storm coming in on Wednesday, and they're still running behind on marketing feeder cattle at El Reno, Oklahoma, but still 6,000 head is a good test there, and the feeder steers sold fully $6 to $10 higher. That is major league trend there at a major high volume market there, right in the smack dab middle of your Southern Plains. How about feeder heifers? $5 to $8 higher. Calves were $6 to $8 higher. You look at a really stick out consignment sale there in El Reno at OKC West. A&T Angus sold 845 head of top quality heifers there, 800 pounds on the average at $153.60. It's only been a couple of weeks ago, guys. You'd be hard pressed to get $153.60 for the best steers that walk, let alone heifers, what they got for them at El Reno on Wednesday. How about winter livestock in Dodge City, Kansas? 3,900 head, good run for them. Feeders were $3 to $5 higher. Steer calves $10 to $15 higher than last week, and heifer calves $5 to $10 higher. Actually, that would be a test on a light run a week ago where they were kind of struggling from the storm, but still significant gains there in your feeder cattle and calf markets. Stick out deal in Dodge City, 82 head, 687 pound steers, bring 176 and a quarter in Dodge City, Kansas. How about some stick out sales all around the region there? Torrington livestock markets, get this quote, 243 head, 776 pound steers. That's getting pretty close to 800 pounds, guys, at $182. You kidding me? How about out east, guys? Bluegrass Stockyards of Albany, Kentucky. They had a whale of a sale in Albany on Wednesday. 134 head, 699 or 700 pound steers, bring $174, standing in the ring in Albany, Kentucky. But the best quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday, your National Beef Wire top quote for the day, come out of Stockman's Livestock Market, Yankton, South Dakota. They had a hell of a fat cattle sale on Tuesday, hell of a feeder cattle sale on Wednesday. How about 90 head, 669 pound steers, bring $198. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.